DW Africa Link.
It's May 1st, Workers' Day, a moment you and I should reflect on the rights, struggles, and achievements of workers worldwide. From the historic fight for the 8-hour workday to ongoing demands for fair wages and better conditions, this day carries deep meaning. In this episode, we explore the origins of Workers' Day, its significance, and what it means in today's labor landscape, focusing mainly on Ghana. Stay tuned. My name is Josephine Mahachi. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter from Africa.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Workers' Day, also known as Labor Day or May Day, is celebrated on May 1st in many countries to honor the contributions of workers and their role in building economies and societies. For starters, the day originated from the labor movement in the late 19th century, especially the fight for an 8-hour workday. The most significant event tied to Workers' Day was the Haymarket Affair in Chicago in 1886, when a peaceful rally for labor rights turned violent after a bomb exploded. This event symbolized workers' struggle for fair conditions and was commemorated internationally as a day of solidarity. Today, Workers' Day is marked by marches, protests, speeches, and celebrations advocating for workers' rights, better wages, safe conditions, and fair treatment. In some countries, it's a public holiday. In others, it's an occasion for activism. Let's take it to Ghana, where workers joined the rest of the world to mark this year's International Workers' Day. However, public workers want the government to pursue prudent economic policies that promote sustainable growth for all Ghanaians, whether in the formal or informal sectors. To discuss more on this, I'm joined by Emmeline Date, Human Resources Expert, and DW's Isaac Kelechi in Accra, Ghana. Right, Emmeline and Isaac Kelechi, thank you so much for joining us here today as we are all celebrating Workers' Day. We are all workers. And this is our day, but our focus now is on Ghana, where the country is also joining the rest of the world to mark this year's International Workers' Day. However, obviously, workers in Ghana are demanding this or that from their government. But before we get so deep into that, let me find out from you, Isaac Kelechi. You are our eyes and ears on the ground. How is the International Day being marked in the country?
So often it's marked usually with a gathering by the workers' union, and often the president joins to celebrate with them. You know, Ghana has a very vibrant a union or workers' union that pushes for various issues related to their welfare. So occasionally, it's a holiday in Ghana, which obviously signifies how committed government is to ensuring that workers really get their due. And obviously, they meet, they gather to deliver speeches and also they make some demands on national issues as well. But most importantly, they want the welfare of the Ghanaian worker. And I should say, largely it is public sector workers, but of course, it has some overflow on general working situation in the country. Yeah.
Right. Now, Emmeline Date, you are a human resources expert and also CEO of ICS. Tell us about your job. Today is our day, so let's talk about our work before I can start asking you more questions on what workers are demanding this year in Ghana.
Okay, so I'm a business consultant. I basically support organizations achieve their strategic goals. So you'll find me assisting business leaders with strategic management, with human resources, with corporate training, marketing and communications, as well as I also provide event solutions for organizations, mostly corporate, events in the country, basically. And then on the side, I also love to mentor and coach young, people in the country.
Right. Now, today is Workers' Day. What does this day really mean for you as a person?
Yes, so I mean, the value workers bring to the continent, in every country in the continent, is really important. Many countries today are what they are because of the labor force they have. And it is a very good day to take time out to celebrate them and appreciate them for their contributions to the development of the economy. So this is the reason why, for me, this day is very special.
Absolutely. It is also special for us. Obviously, I'll speak for you as well, Isaac Kalechi, as journalists. It is a very special day. Look at us. We are all working on this day. But now let's go to the issues that sector workers are facing in Ghana today. Emmeline, understand that they seek better working conditions on such days. I mean, on every occasion, when it's May Day, Labor Day, Workers' Day, people call it differently. But how justified are those concerns by workers?
I'm glad we are dealing with Ghana. We are faced with a very hard-hit economy. Prices of goods and services keep going up, but unfortunately, salaries don't match it. As a consultant myself, as I speak to you, when I even provide services to clients in the private or public sector, they are always complain about one thing: budget constraints, right? So we do have a legitimate situation in the country where salary doesn't meet budget. And so it is not strange that you would find employees crying or requesting for better working conditions. Now, on the flip side, there are organizations that really do not have great working conditions. And that is why you would see the agitations and unrest in the country. Recently, we had the Ghana Medical Association, demonstrating and threatening and even closing some units in the hospital in the northern region because of lack of equipment. And they revealed that they had been working in very uncomfortable situations, even having to spend their own money to support the operations of the hospital. And then if you also look at the educational sector, the teachers are also demanding for arrears of their salaries. I mean, when you look at these things, it is not, there is no way anybody who is giving his or her all to an organization and not being compensated, and then you expect them to be happy. There's something we like to say in Ghana: work and happiness, right? You cannot expect your staff to be burdened and have the mental, framework, the right mental state to deliver. It won't happen. And this is the reason why in the public sector in Ghana, services are very bad, because demotivated staff will never be productive. It is not possible. So this is the situation we find ourselves in the country. Of course, we do have the private sector where similar situations happen. There are people who have been working for months, they're not being paid their salary, or they have horrible working conditions, and then they are forced, just because they need bread and butter on their tables, they have to manage and squeeze themselves to be able to survive and take care of their families.
Right. No, so when people are not paid for the work they've done, Emmeline, that is justified. But as a human resources expert, you understand also there are times when money is never enough. There are workers that are getting paid, but they wouldn't know the turnaround of the company's maybe expenditures or the money that's coming in. And there's also that aspect where workers still feel what they're getting paid is not enough. Do you also experience such instances, especially as someone who's in that field?
Oh, absolutely. Even in human resources, we say money is not actually the highest motivator, because in economics, the needs of human beings are insatiable. Okay, and it's interesting to note that the more your salary or the more money you earn, the more needs you have. That is the law of economics.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
But I advise employers, listen, don't focus solely on just the cash element of motivation. In HR, we have intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors. So the extrinsic is the compensation, basically, all of the things that make money, and that tangible things that you give your staff. So if you look at the extrinsic, we also have non-cash elements. So we have benefits, so which are also paid in cash, but you receive it in kind. Now, I'll give you an example so that I can make this very relevant to everyone listening to us. There's this company,
Absolutely.
the owner is late, called Zappos in the United States of America. There was a time when he got up and he noticed that the company was not achieving their financial goal. And then he told a brother, who is the accountant, that his salary, he the CEO, his yearly salary, that salary for the year, he should spread it across the staff, and by the way of increasing it, because he wanted the staff to be focused on achieving the goal. And the brother thought he was mad. He said, how can you, why would you do this? I mean, obviously as a CEO, he's paid a lot, and how would he be able to survive and then sacrifice his salary for the staff? But he had a certain mentality that if I'm able to focus my staff's attention to work and not their issues, he believed that productivity would double. Well, as the accountant, he's working for the brother, and so he did it. It will interest you that after months had passed, they actually achieved the goal that the CEO wanted. Now, when some of these staff were interviewed and they were asked what was the secret, it was interesting to find out that many of them had other personal issues that their salary could not meet. One of them said she had school fees issues, one had rent issues, one had different issues, but they said the extra cash was able to meet those needs. And so when they came to work, they were present in mind and body. And that is what many employers don't understand. Presenteeism. I can be in the office, sitting in front of my computer, even attending to clients, but my soul is not there. My mind is not there. And remember, the mind of the employee is the creative center. Okay, that is where creativity, good customer service, sound judgment, negotiation skills, everything sits over there. But when that place is full of distractions, problems, there is no way the potential of that employee can be risen up. So it is very important that an employer shouldn't assume that I'm paying my staff well. You conduct a survey. Ask your staff, how are you doing? How is your mental state today? What can I do to make you better? It will shock you that the staff may not even ask for more money. Sometimes you just need some time off. Some of them want flexible working arrangements. You know, some of them are mothers. They need to bring their babies to the office because they can't focus and imagine what's happening with their babies at home. Some of them have carers, so they will need support with having maybe a carer system to support them. All of these things are very important. And the moment you are, and even as far as even recognition and rewards.
Recognition, even tensions amongst, even tensions amongst colleagues,
Yes, exactly. Creating a clean political office space. I say office politics is not all bad. All right. When you have a beautiful relationship with your boss, where employees are not afraid to express their feelings, where employees' decisions are heard. You understand me? Where they participate in decision making. All of these things will increase what we call employee engagement. I tell my clients one thing. I say, listen, you don't hire people when you are still stressed. Then you don't need to hire them. Some people have hired people, but they are doing the work of the people they've hired. And I'm like, what is the need for that? Something is missing. Look into it. Be intentional about it. Stop focusing on KPIs only and focus on the mental and emotional well-being of your employees. The moment the emotional well-being is intact, KPIs will never be a problem. And I always say, make sure it starts from hiring the right people. Because if you hire the wrong person, no matter what you do, it won't work. You cannot train somebody whose mental state is wrong. You cannot
Right.
train anybody who is not interested in changing. So make sure you get it right from the recruitment stage. The rest of it will be beautiful for you.
Absolutely. So these are the concerns, actually, Emmeline, that you've mentioned about productivity among public sector workers. But we also want to know from you, before I go to Kelechi to touch on Ghana, how can we have workers in state agencies in Africa to be productive like in the private sector?
The public sector is not that one where you find people are held accountable for their work. So there's a lot of lackadaisical attitude in that sector, poor customer service, especially in the centers that are very critical, the health sector and the education sector. Those two, they are so key to us. So how then can we solve all of these things? Number one, we need to strengthen performance-based accountability. So obviously that is a problem that has to be fixed. You need to let the staff understand that there is a consequence to non-performance, which has to be addressed constructively, just as you find in competitive private sector environments. So you have to implement performance reviews after you have introduced clear KPIs for the employees, which obviously must be linked to measurable outputs and service delivery benchmarks. So once you strengthen your accountability system for the employees, then everybody knows that if I don't behave well, I don't get, a positive reinforcement. If you understand what I'm saying. Huh.
Yes,
And
yes.
then I spoke about bureaucracy issues. My God, it's amazing. I know there has been efforts to digitize, operations in the government, but I think we need to move beyond installing digital systems to executing the systems properly. So you go to a particular state agency, you see that it's been heavily digitized, but still, they'll tell you that the system is down, or oh, this person is not at post, you didn't come to work, or the person just can't be bothered about you. I remember when I went to UGM, University of Ghana Medical Center, the first early days of operations. My goodness, wow! You get there, the team are in front of you. Everything was just digitized, and in a few minutes, you have your registration, your card, and all that. You are waiting for the doctor. You don't have to hold anything. Unlike a Kolebu Teaching Hospital, where your file you have to hold it and bring it to your house. You sit to the doctor. You are out. You don't have a prescription with you. You go there. The prescription is in the system. You go to the pharmacy. Beautiful. That is what we are talking about. You understand what I'm saying? So using technology to enhance productivity, and then ownership. Allow public sector workers especially have a sense of ownership of their own. Give them a sense of, let them know that their contribution matters. And then one of the things I noticed with the public sector is the fact that most of them are very bitter, because they have there's this tendency for you to not be heard when you have an issue. If somebody is preferred over you, it is very much demonstrated that you don't matter. And so one of the sessions I attended, one of them almost cried during the training session. It was supposed to be just training. It almost became a therapy session. There is that I don't know what it is, but they seem to want to ostracize people who are not part of their clique. So that bad political office politics, if I will put it that way. They don't have open door policies.
All right. Now, Kelechi, coming to you with what Emmeline just said now as a last point. We do also recall that when President John Mahama assumed office, hundreds, if not thousands of workers' contracts were terminated. To begin with, maybe take us back memory lane, especially for our listeners who might not know what happened, and also what were the reasons?
So basically, it's just, I would say, a political crisis, we'll say, when it comes to that, because it's not just this time that we've had this happen. So basically, what happens is that when political parties are heading to elections and they're in power, they're not so sure as to whether they're going to win or not. And usually, people who belong to the party obviously will have to be rewarded. And usually, reward here in Ghana will means that you are given some position or you're given some employment. And of course, we know that usually people believe that the public sector is where you are guaranteed, like Emily was saying, your salaries, whether you work or not. So you are more secure there. And so usually people begin to be given appointments when election results have been announced and they realize that they have lost, and so they need to put in their people in there before they leave as a reward. And I think that that has been the problem. So once the next government comes in, they also want to reverse that because they're also thinking about rewarding their own party faithful who also need some job. But by and large, they will obviously tell you that it's because of budget constraints because they think they are going to take on more expenditure than anticipated. But I think it's purely about we having a proper law in place, regulation in place that perhaps says that, well, before, if you want to employ someone, it should be before elections. It cannot be after elections. Then we could have these things being dealt with. But that was the main reason why the government said it had to revoke the appointment of some of these workers. But I think it's also in court already. People who have been affected are trying to find a way around it. Workers' union have spoken about it. But I think we need to go beyond just trying to fix this and trying to find a more lasting solution to it so that irrespective of which party comes to power, we make sure that public sector workers are secured if you are employed based on merit. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you belong to party A or B. I think everyone deserves to work in the public sector. And if they are qualified and they have the capacity, the competence to work, it shouldn't matter when they are employed, once there's a need for us to have it. But if we want to deal with it, we need to have a law in place that says because of our political culture, well, you can only employ until this particular date in an election year. And I think that can help solve the problem. So that was mainly the issue that has made the headline when the Mahama administration came in.
Right. Now, since you still have the mic as we wrap up our discussion, Kelechi, you've really outlined this practice in Ghana of replacing political, affiliates or maybe heads of public sector institutions with every change of government. How has this affected productivity, particularly in the public sector?
I think that, again, it also gets to the issue of the law. I mean, if institutions are supposed to be run professionally, then we need professionals. Again, of course, we cannot entirely take away political elements from some of these public sector institutions because, again, it's about policy implementation as well in some of these sectors. So I honestly think that there's a need for us to stress on government appointing competent people within their parties to such positions, people who know much about those roles, and of course, ultimately are interested in the well-being or interested in the progress of their institutions, and then ultimately the country as a whole.
Now, Emmeline, as we also wrap up, just to hear from you as a seasoned HR practitioner for years, your advice, especially to the African worker, how can we get them to be more efficient?
Probably we need to get to that level where recruitment of public sector workers have nothing to do with whatever government is in power. Indeed, there has been some leaders in Ghana who did not even want to, should I say, replace some positions just because their party was in power. They were rather focused on the competency of, the person holding the office. Unfortunately, leaders that come in and go are not the same. Let's empower people to also create jobs, to also employ more people. So when the public sector is working, the private sector is working, and then the entrepreneurship sector is working, I think that will be able to make headway in that aspect.
Right. Thank you so much, Emmeline and Isaac, for joining us here in DW Africa Link podcast. And Isaac, honestly, I feel we have to have another episode where we talk about these issues on how to groom our graduates, how to groom people to be ready for work, and even the initiative that Emmanuel just mentioned that the president has actually launched in Ghana. But thank you so much for joining us. At the Africa Link podcast, we always look across the continent to see how the stories we are dealing with play out or at times even overlap. To mark Workers' Day, many opposition politicians across Africa use the day to score political points. They often rally their constituents to protest against the rising cost of living, change of governments, and freeing political space, among other things. Police also are usually deployed to quell potential protests. However, the bottom line is that workers will continue to demand a pay raise because it's never enough. That's it for this edition of Africa Link. Remember, you are not just a listener, but a part of our community, and your engagement can shape the direction of our discussions. We value your insights and encourage you to share your thoughts with us. You can find all of the Africa Link podcast episodes on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from. This episode was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabi. My name is Josephine Mahachi. Thanks for listening. Until the next one, it's bye for now and happy